Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us today. Welcome to the informational webinar for the sprint, Establishing Circularity for Food and Beverage Containers with our partner, Dart Container. My name is Katie Bornfleth. I'm the Associate Director of Marketing and Communications with TechConnect, and I'm going to be your host this afternoon. During the next 45 minutes, we're going to take a deep dive into all aspects of the sprint. We're going to have a Q&A session at the end, about 15 minutes worth. So with that said, if you will go ahead and put any questions you have, big or small, doesn't matter, into the Q&A section of GoToWebinar at this point or anytime during the webinar, we will grab those at the end. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our expert panel. We'll start with Jonathan Yakashaw, my colleague with TechConnect. If everybody just kind of would give a wave to let everybody know who you are. And the DART team, we have Todd Adkins, Noel Dolan, and Adam Graber. Without further ado, Jonathan, I'm going to hand it over to you and we will get this started.
Great, thanks, Katie. Good afternoon, as Katie said. My name is Jonathan Yakashaw. I'm the Senior Manager for Open Innovation Programs with TechConnect. Couple quick agenda items. Basically, this information session is really meant for you all, you attendees, to get you some good information about the project and hopefully convince you that you should participate in it. We're going to talk about why we're doing it, what we're looking for, what kinds of engagement might be possible, and also, kind of importantly, the timeline for the project. And as Katie said, please feel free to submit your questions at any point during the Q&A, into the Q&A chat box, and we will get to them during the Q&A portion of today's session. So with that and my little bit out of the way for right now, I'm going to turn it over to Adam, and he's going to talk to you about Dart Container and why they are interested in this particular program. Adam, go ahead.
Thanks, Jonathan. As was mentioned earlier, my name's Adam Graber. Todd Adkins and Noel Dolan are also on the team from our global innovation team at Dart. And for those of you who do not know Dart Container, excuse me, my throat got dry just as I started speaking, apologies. But we are a global leader in making cups and containers for both the food service market, so restaurants, quick serve restaurants, any place that serves food, fresh food and beverage, as well as the retail market. You may know our brand either as Dart Container, or also we sell the Solo brand of cups, which may be more known to the retail market. We are a global company. We operate primarily in North America. We've got about 15,000 employees. We've been around 60 years, many locations in a number of countries. And we produce, as I said, cups and containers, as well as cutlery and other types of items for both food service and retail. And we make, we're known for certain things like the Solo cup or foam cups on the Dart side, but we make a variety of materials, products made from molded fiber or paper products, as well as different types of plastic and foam, and used in many, many contexts. So if you move to the next slide, Jonathan. Kind of to give a little bit of background for what we're looking for in this particular challenge, we're constantly at Dart looking for ways, and you can tell by the different materials that we use across the board. We've, over the years, really kind of diversified our portfolio of offerings to the market, and primarily to get, better performance, better cost, and also more sustainability. And certainly in recent years, sustainability has been a key driver of innovation. We've certainly moved with the market to make our products more recyclable, more compostable, more reusable, more content from recycled material as well. And so this is kind of the next stage in really trying to make sure, since we have a deep commitment to sustainability, that when we make a claim like recyclability or compostability or reusability, we have a way to really make sure that the loop is closed and we create a circular system for those materials, because one of the biggest obstacles to more sustainable products in food and beverage packaging is the fact that it's very difficult in many cases to actually get the intended next use of the products really executed. You know, a lot of recycling for certain materials, recycling levels are pretty low. Compostability, you know, is not always a reality for people. They don't have access to people that are actually doing the composting, and you know, either reuse or taking materials and bringing it back into the products. If there's no way to, from a logistics standpoint, to actually transport the material back to where it needs to be either reprocessed, reused, or put back into the product, you know, there's a lot of opportunity lost in terms of sustainability and economics, frankly. So that's kind of what leads us here, is that we want to continue to push the horizon to make our products more sustainable, more economically viable, et cetera. And so this particular challenge is, there's a lot of pieces to what I talked about in terms of recovery, whether you look at specific types of next life for materials, you know, in terms of recyclability or compostability or reusability, all those have different paths. We're not so much concerned with how things are processed at this point. What now? One of the key, surprisingly, and to some people who haven't thought about this, one of the key challenges is simply just the moving of stuff. The collecting and the moving of it. So collections, you know, there's a number of challenges behind that, you know, including how widely distributed the products may be. You know, if you go to a McDonald's or a Dunkin' Donuts and you get a container or a cup, you know, you can take it anywhere, you know, and you know, you could jump on a plane and be in another city or another country with it when you need to like return it. And so, you know, things are very widely distributed. So being able to actually collect things is not as simple as just simply putting it in the bin, because you may not be around a bin. And then for even where there are options to collect things, there are many people that do standard collection for recycling or composting that won't take food service items because they may have some staining or some material left over from the food and beverage that goes into them. So, you know, dirty food and beverage containers, even if they're kind of wiped off or washed quickly, you know, there's always going to be some kind of residue on them. And that's often something that some recyclers or some composters will not take, or, you know, some people that are in logistics, you know, if they're distributors, they can't have dirty product on the same trucks that clean product has. And so what we're looking for and what we're hoping to find is companies that really focus like a laser beam on collecting products and moving it, you know, specifically products that have those challenges of food and beverage containers that might have some, you know, food residue, beverage residue. So collecting and moving dirty things. You know, and like I said, for now, you know, there may be future challenges that talk about how we process the material, what we do with it. But right now, we're really strictly hoping to find people that can help with some of those key challenges. So I think that's a good background. We can obviously go into more in the question part, but I'd turn it back over to you, Jonathan, at this point.
Great, thanks, Adam. All right, so Adam's given you a good overview of both Dark Container and why they're interested in this particular project. Let's talk a little bit about timeline, because obviously dates are going to be important. Today is the 18th of October. You're here in the webinar, and thank you for joining us. Your next really big date that you're going to want to keep an eye on is a week from today, October 25th. That is the submission deadline for this particular project. Some of you who are listening to this webinar, you may be thinking that that isn't enough time for you to put together a response. First off, let me assure you, it absolutely is enough time for you to put together a compelling and interesting response. We keep the response mechanism very simple and straightforward for you, and I'll get to that in just a little bit, but I just wanted to get that right off the bat, that you definitely have plenty of time to put together a good response. So, end of October, more or less, we're going to be closing the project to new submissions. The DART team will start taking a look at submissions, and we aim to tell the finalists that have been selected for the virtual pitch session in November, so that you have ample time to prepare for that pitch session, which will take place in December of this year. And then After the virtual pitch session, DART will begin their one-on-one direct engagement with selected finalists starting early next year. So your timeline from submitting a response to hopefully beginning to work directly with DART and you're interacting with them is going to be on the order of a few months. So not very long at all. Speaking of engagements, what kind of engagements are possible? First and foremost, the relationship between a finalist and DART container, that's going to be determined jointly by both of your organizations. It's not going to be a matter of DART informing you of how you guys are going to be working together. It's going to be a collaborative discussion. And you see on your screen some of the possibilities that are on the table for you to consider when thinking about how you want to work with DART. Pilot program funding, direct investment, technology licensing, technology acquisition. Think about how you might want to engage with DART. Part of the response form is going to ask you, tell us how you want to work with us. Okay, so give that some thought when you're putting together your response. Okay. Speaking of how to respond, this is a perennial favorite topic for people who are new to responding to questions like this. What do I need to do? Well, first off, you're going to go to the URL that you see on your screen. That is where the project lives. That is where you're going to submit your response. You need to submit a high-level, non-confidential response that really serves three basic purposes. It introduces you to DART, it provides an overview to your technology, and it expresses your interest in working with DART on this particular topic. So when it comes to building an effective and engaging response, you need to tell DART a good story about who you are, what you do, and why they should want to work with you. It may sound a little paradoxical, but the goal of your response is not to get DART to sign a contract with you or to give you money for anything. The goal of your response is, I want DART to finish reading this and say, we need to learn more about this organization. That is your entire goal. You need to get them to say, wow, this is really cool stuff. We want to work with this team. That's your goal. So when it comes to figuring out what you include, what you don't include, take a look at the project page. We have put together the kinds of information that DART is going to be looking for in good responses. So the more really good, engaging, detailed information, again, at a non-confidential level, that you can put in to your response that relates to those evaluation criteria, odds are you're going to do better. Okay, so absolutely take a look at the project page and try to include as much of that good information as you can. And once again, submission deadline is a week from today. As I said a little bit ago, you definitely have time to put together a good response. The response form itself, if you were to max out all of the open text boxes, is about 1,100 words, which is about 4 pages long. So it is not intended to be a fully bespoke, detailed technical proposal that carries everything that you possibly could do, want to do, will do with DART. It is meant to be a high-level introduction, and that is what you're aiming for here. So keep that in mind when you're thinking about participating. And we want to see as many of you participate as possible. I see all the submissions come in. I want to have the problem of having too many submissions to read. And I think the DART team would like to see that as well. They want to see as many different really cool and interesting approaches for this project. That's why they're doing this project. They're here to find new ways to go about doing this. And that's why you're here as well. So I'm going to stop talking for just a little bit here. And I'm going to bring Katie back into the mix. If you've got questions for me about how to participate, if you've got questions for the DART team about what kinds of things that they might be interested in, now is an excellent opportunity for you to get information directly from the four of us. If you have questions outside of the webinar, the next slide, I will detail how you can get information after today's webinar. But right now, you've got the four of us here. Please avail yourself of the opportunity. Ask as many different questions as you've got. Katie, kick us off with our first question, please.
All right, ladies and gentlemen. Michael asks, is track and trace important?
Yeah, and Noel and Todd, please jump in if you want to add to it. It's important. It's not necessarily the bullseye focus of what we're looking at, but clearly the ability, what we want to do by creating circular systems, we want to be able to demonstrate that we're actually living up to the reality of the claims we make, whether it's reuse, compostability, recyclability, et cetera. So the ability to actually track, measure that kind of thing is important. Although, like I said, the bullseye here is really, can we just move dirty food and beverage packaging? Can we collect it and move it places? But tracking is something we're interested in as well.
All right, thank you, Adam. Anika asks, will you be sharing the submission evaluation criteria after the webinar?
Take a look at the project page. There is the list of all of the information that is that DART is looking for in a good submission. That really is kind of the guidelines that DART is going to be using for what separates a really exceptional submission from one that is just okay. The more that you can speak to how your technology and your organization aligns with those criteria, the better.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. Alice asks, what are the key sustainability challenges that DART Container is addressing through this initiative?
Yeah, I think I outlined a little bit of it. It's really around those particular claims. Around recyclability. Making sure that we're tackling and getting materials recycled at a higher rate, and there are very unique pieces around really any sustainability claim. But for recyclability, a lot of the times it's availability of recovery facilities that can process, can collect and send those products to end markets. And it's really about access, and it's also about again, that dirty product could contaminate other types of products. So a lot of reclaimers don't want to use food and beverage product, and even if it is theoretically recyclable in some cases. And similar for compostability, although compostability is kind of newer to the market, there's even lower levels of access, and a lot of industrial compostability or composting facilities are looking for mostly food waste, and something that can actually produce an organic grade compost at the end of the day. And sometimes what's out there in food and beverage doesn't even get it accepted. It gets landfilled and stuff like that. From a reuse perspective, it's really that's really the wild west of the industry. But it's about, again, collecting the products, getting to a sanitization, washing type facility that can wash them and get them back to where they can be reused. So it's there's unique challenges with pretty much any one of these claims. And then for recycled content, getting material product to a place where it can actually be put into flake form or repelletized and put back into new products of the same type, is also about moving the product, cleaning the product, and getting it to a usable form. But that's why we're really interested in collecting and moving right as the first step, because there's a lot of different end goals for it. So.
Thank you, Adam. Matt asks, are there specific geographic markets that you're focused on?
I don't know. No, maybe Noel, you can add some color commentary on the markets.
As far as geographic, like the U.S. or within the U.S., I think we are focused on North America, I would say, with a heavy emphasis on the United States. And if we had to narrow it further from that, obviously some of the the hotbeds where circular systems are showing up, whether it be because of legislation or customer desire to be more green. So maybe I'm thinking California, New York, Colorado, but I hate to limit it because if there's something happening in Dallas, Texas, it'd be great to know about it.
Noel, let me ask you, if somebody from outside the United States had a plan for London, for drawing a city out of a hat, would that be completely out of scope, or would that fall into the bucket of we're still interested because it gets us more information?
Yeah, I think, Adam, correct me if I'm wrong here, but I feel that the more the merrier. And if it's some sort of occurrence that's happening in London or somewhere in Europe, I don't think that's out of scope.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'd agree that it's not out of scope, and particularly if there's like a system up and running, demonstrating either an approach or a technology, but I do think it would ultimately have to be transferable to other markets, and particularly into North America. So if there's something just really idiosyncratic about the system, if it's, it wholly relies on the means, in Mumbai for, distributing lunches, that may not be as transferable or something like that, as an example. But generally speaking, we want to find systems that are taking a unique approach for the collection and logistics, and are transferable so that we can grow it over time.
So if somebody had an existing program and they were interested in getting it into the United States, I'm guessing you would like to have at least some high level consideration given in a response for how they might go about doing that?
Yeah, I think so.
At least in a theoretical way.
Yeah, absolutely. The things we would be most interested in are, systems that are up and running and, ready to scale or transfer quickly, but something that is a little bit earlier stage and theoretically transferable is something we'd certainly want to talk about as well.
Okay.
That was a great question. Rob asks, are you focused on scope 1, 2, and 3 emissions?
I think, that kind of gets to the tracking question earlier and what we're measuring. The quick answer is we're interested in all of those, but that's not really what this challenge specifically is about. This challenge is much more mundane about how do we collect dirty food and beverage containers and move them to a place. It's a part of that question about the whole system of tracking and measurement and impact measurement and LCAs and things like that. But that's not, we're, as an organization, we're interested in all of those emission types in terms of how we impact them, but it's probably not something that we're looking to necessarily solve with this challenge.
Okay. Matt asks, which plastics or other materials make up the bulk of materials that would be covered?
And Todd, jump in and keep me honest on this one, but I would say primarily, there's a lot of materials that we make on the plastic side, everything from polystyrene and EPS, foamed polystyrene, to polypropylene, to PET, and even other materials, we're looking at in a smaller way like bioresins. But I would say polypropylene is the most important one moving forward, just because HDPE is another plastic that's widely recovered. It's not one that DART makes a lot of stuff out of right now. So I would say of the more widely recycled and recovered products, polypropylene, PET a little bit, polystyrene, the whole industry is a little bit evolving away from polystyrene, so I'd probably de-emphasize that. But yeah, a lot of polypropylene is probably the most important one.
Fantastic. All right, Charles, he'd like to know how many winners are you intending to select?
Actually, before I get to Charles's question, let me go back to that previous
Okay.
question and talk about, because the question was framed around what kinds of plastic we're hoping to recover. I also want to just remind people we're also interested in recovering paper or molded fiber or fiber-based materials as well. Whether for composting or for repulping and reuse and recycling. So that is, I just want to make sure that that's a question. In terms of Charles's question about how many finalists are we looking to choose, or how many winners, really kind of depends on what we get. It's hard to put. We don't have a set limit. I mean, obviously there is a limit to how many folks we could work with and invest in and really put a huge effort toward. But at least at this stage, we're looking to try to cast the net wide, I think, like Jonathan said, and have some good conversations about possibilities. Ultimately, it depends on the solution provided, how many we scale up, and how many we push to a certain point.
Okay.
Again, I think that falls into the category of you'd like to have the problem of too many really good technologies and organizations to pick from.
All right, good point. All right, Daniel, are you looking for complete solutions? Are you also interested in technologies that can be integrated into other solutions to make them more sustainable?
Where, it kind of gets to that bullseye target that I've been kind of repeating a little bit. I mean, the system for recovering, processing materials and realizing their end life, whether, in whatever sustainable, arena they fall into, it's a big system, and it involves things like the previous question around tracking and metrics and, the different scope emissions and LCA type measures that you would do. For right now, I'm most interested in very focused logistics, collecting and moving dirty dishes, dirty cups and containers. I hate to keep repeating that. That's what I'm most interested right now. That doesn't mean that we won't have a future challenge that gets into some of those other pieces. And if there's something really unique that could just be that catalyst to make that full system, better, we certainly want to find out about it. But the priority will be on the logistics side of things for this challenge.
Okay. Do you have a target collection or return rate? This is from Anika.
Not really. I mean, at this point, it really, again, depends on the solution. The real answer is as much as possible, at this point, and I'm sure it will vary by, like I talked about, there's different maturity rates of recycling versus composting versus reusables. And, in each one of those, we want to boost the curve and make the recovery and the yield, like things actually getting to their designed next life, higher. So, I don't have a specific number. We want people that can help us collect and move stuff so that we can boost the rate overall.
And
Okay.
and Adam, correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess it would also kind of depend on geographically where you were doing the collection at. A 10% collection rate in a fairly non-populous town versus 10% in New York City, those are very, very different realities of how much you're actually collecting, even if they are objectively the same percentage. Would that be a component as well?
Yeah, absolutely. The density of material we're collecting, could increase the overall impact that the program could have. Yeah.
Okay. You touched on what you would like to collect, or you touched a lot on that. Matt wants to know by volume, and I guess that's kind of what you just discussed just now, on what are the most common by volume items you would want to collect and reuse.
Yeah, and I don't know if in the question, if by item he means, or the questioner means what types of items, like, is it cups, is it, food containers, is it cutlery, is it lids,
Yes, that's what he
Yeah.
meant. He's saying it right now.
Yeah, okay, so I think it's really all of those. I think just, as the market falls, there tend to be more cups and lids than especially cups than a lot of things, but each material is going to be different. There's probably, more of a certain type of material in certain product categories. So it's hard to put a number on. I don't know, Todd or Noel, if you have any thoughts on that. Yeah, it doesn't sound like there's any additions on that. I will say there are variances in types of products in terms of collection rates, and there are some products that are even harder than usual for food and beverage containers to be collected. And typically for most like material recovery facilities, like your standard municipal recycler type facilities, smaller size things are harder to recover, and things that are like under 2 inches in any dimension. And so things like cutlery, like plastic spoons and forks and knives, things like lids for cups and containers, tend to be really small, and a lot of those do not get recovered in standard facilities. And so, I wouldn't say I want to target small items. I'm just saying in terms of the ability to collect, that's probably one of the dimensions that would be really of interest if people had some way to recover those things that standard means of collection just don't get very well. But overall, sort of is the same answer. We want to increase the rates of collection among all types of containers as well as materials.
Okay. All right. John, this is a good one. How do I protect my intellectual property?
Okay, great question. You get that question a lot when talking to people about responding to a project. As I said, non-confidential information only in your response, and that will also apply for the virtual pitch session. I don't want to see any confidential information. I don't want to see anything labeled as confidential information. The simple fact of the matter is your IP can't be misused, misappropriated, or anything of the sort if none of it changes hands. Tell me what you can do, not how you do it, okay? Once you are in direct engagement with Dart Container, at that point, you're going to be able to establish confidentiality agreements between your two organizations to facilitate the exchange of information, to protect the exchange of information, and really get into the nitty-gritty. So that is how you're going to protect your IP. Don't give me any confidential information.
Okay, well put, Jonathan. Thank you.
Lots of practice.
Yeah. And
All right.
I would underscore that from the Dart side. We're not interested in, this is not a phishing exercise to get people's confidential information. This is to find partners to actually build things in the future. And we have a company that, is privately held based on a system of integrity with our partners. And, we start every engagement with, genuine, confidentiality agreements or joint development agreements where we're not the kind of company that's in this to just sort of grab people's ideas and harvest them.
That's good. All right. Well, Anika, I know you touched on this and you kept saying dirty. So she wants to know, are you just looking at post-consumer or would you be interested in pre-consumer waste?
I think we're most interested in post-consumer, it's really, really again, I'm overusing the term bullseye target. The bullseye target is when people go to a restaurant or a food service establishment, could be a corporate cafeteria or whatever, hospital, university, stadium, whatever, wherever they're having food and beverage, they eat and drink, and they either put it in a bin or a trash receptacle. That's the stuff we're really interested in. If there's something really novel that can boost boost the post-industrial collection rates, that, yeah, we'd be interested in hearing that, but really that's the main thing. We're looking for post-consumer primarily.
Okay. Can you share some examples of successful partnerships or engagements that you've had in past related to sustainability?
Yeah, unfortunately, most of, we can't like point to, a lot of them because of the confidentiality issues we're just talking to. We have a number of organizations we've worked with. Probably the easiest things to talk about would be we have a slew of nonprofit and industry associations that we work with, that ranging from the certification, companies like BPI and standard setting organizations, PR3 and FBI, those kind of things that are more public. We invest heavily in organizations that are looking to push recycling and composting rates and infrastructure and working with local municipalities and things like that. In terms of private companies that we're doing joint development with, most of those are governed by confidentiality agreements that we unfortunately not able to disclose. But there are definitely organizations we're investing in, partnering with for testing and exactly the kinds of things that we're looking to do right now.
All right. Does a respondent need to have experience in the packaging industry?
I don't think so. Since this is really logistics focused, I mean, there's a lot of examples of people collecting and moving stuff, successfully. I mean, milkman models and moving pallets and, collecting beer kegs. There's lots of things people are collecting and moving. I think the only things that, not to beat the dead horse of the dirty food and beverage cups. That's like a unique element compared to some types of moving logistics systems. So it has to be usable for those kinds of things. But yeah, no, absolutely not. This is really a bullseye target on logistics more than about food and beverage, recovery or products.
All right. Lisa, what is the timeline for implementing this program and what milestones have been achieved so far?
Well, I can take the, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, you can go ahead, Jonathan.
Okay, I can take the timeline part of it. As I said, submission deadline is the 25th of October. We'll notify finalists in November if they've been selected for the virtual pitch event. Give you ample time to prepare for it. The virtual pitch event itself will take place in December, and then direct engagement will begin with DART in early 2024.
Yeah, and carrying over from that, the direct engagement piece, again, not to dodge the question, but it really depends on what the solution is and what stage of development it is. If it's something that's already ubiquitous and just easy to, and very turnkey to start, it could be very, very quick. If it's something that needs to be tested or developed or built, it's going to take some time. Certainly in 2024, starting with that direct engagement in early 2024, we can, we're very interested in trying to work on these solutions. So that's something that we would begin the discussion of what does the timeline look like as early as possible in 2024.
All right, great. And you may have spoken to this earlier. This question is from Richard. Are new materials a serious consideration for this competition? And is there a price point for the new materials?
By new materials, I'm not sure if the question is talking about new things like new types of plastic, like PHA or PLA or bio-PBS or cellulose acid. That, I don't know if it's that kind of new materials or new as in not used materials, but
he writes composites.
Okay, so like, yeah, I would say for the most part, I'd have to imagine what some of those, compounded materials might look like. That's probably not the main focus. It's probably on, ultimately, this will come back to what types of food and beverage packaging are out there broadly. And like I mentioned earlier, the most common things tend to be polypropylene, PET, polystyrene, which we're not really focusing on that much, potentially HDPE, but the things that are currently out there, a lot of products made of them, and there's a lot of use for them. So newer materials, that are trying to grow a market share are probably not the focus of this.
All right. All right. Well, it looks like we've covered pretty much everything. There's a lot of repetitive questions in here. So Jonathan, do you have any points to cover?
Yeah, I can just kind of wrap everything up in the last little bit. Obviously, you had a number of great questions. If you have questions outside of today's webinar, how are you going to get information? Right up there on your screen. Reach out to me. Let me know what your questions are. Email address is jyakusha@techconnect.org. JAKISCHA@techconnect.org. Let me know what your questions are. Obviously, you have just about a week to get your submission in. So if you have questions, I would encourage you to do it sooner rather than later so that I can get you the information that you need to submit. As we have said on a couple of occasions, we would love to have the problem of too many submissions to consider and too many really great, awesome technologies for DART. That would be a good quote unquote problem for us to have, because that means that you all are very strongly interested in working with DART, and that's what we're here for. We are here to help facilitate that engagement between you and DART. So what can you do? Go to the project page, take a look at the information that is there, telling you what kinds of things are in scope, telling you what kinds of information to include in your response. So start thinking about what you want to tell DART. You are telling them a story about your organization, so make it a good one. Make them respond by saying, this is just plain cool. We want to work with this team. We need to work with this team because they've got a really cool approach for what we're trying to do here. And if you can do that, odds are you're going to do pretty well. And that's what we're looking for here. So as I said, if you've got questions, please feel free to reach out to me. More than happy to take some time to answer questions, because ultimately we want to see as many good responses as possible. Thank you all very much for your time today. Katie, thank you for handling all the questions that were coming in. DART team, thank you for taking some time out of your afternoon to talk to attendees. And lastly, to attendees, thank you for taking some time out of your day to listen to all of us talk about this project. Remember, deadline is October 25th. I would love to see all of you submit a response. And if you've got more than one response, I would like to see that too. So with that, thank you very much once again, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Thanks.